I'll be completely honest. I didn't want to make this video because I didn't want to jinx it. Texas A&M has a lot of momentum going their way, and I wanted to talk about what has been the core reason that they've built up this momentum, regardless of the quarterback position, and how Mike Elko has imprinted his identity. And you can see the correlations of the 2020 year, the last time I can remember a defense for Texas A&M being even remotely referred to as a wrecking crew. And if you don't know what a wrecking crew is, in the most simple way possible, Texas A&M, a lot of people think of, Johnny Manziel, Cliff Kingsbury, Kenny Trill, Kyle Allen, like the offensive firepower. And then the reality is Texas A&M as an institution, as a football program, they run through defense. Though I think of the R.C. Slocum days, the greatest head coach in Texas A&M history. His MO and everything around Texas A&M was always about the defense. And I feel like going with Mike Elko is them reverting back to their roots. And now you're really seeing the fruits of the labor and Jay Bateman and putting their players in the best position to win. Because one of the biggest problems with Texas A&M defensively over the past couple of years, after Mike Elko left in 2020, it was primarily the problem of one side of the coin or the other. It was either you were going to have a good front seven with a bad secondary or a great secondary with a bad front seven. And you could never really get the balance to go your way. If you were playing a certain style against the offense, it was going to work. Like, say, if you were playing a pass-happy offense going against the years where you had a good secondary, it was going to work. But if you were able to run the ball against that specific defense, you were probably going to win the game, and it was just unbalanced. And that's never going to be a defense that's going to win a lot of football games, especially in the SEC. And it was so confusing and frustrating because it goes back to the point of Texas A&M bringing in these 5 stars, bringing in these talented players, especially knowing on the defensive side of the ball in the front seven, the defensive line. It just felt like a given that Texas A&M was always going to be able to rotate defensive linemen, was always going to be able to have the next guy up mentality, even if they had a couple of injuries, even if there was a guy that was tired and needed to be out for a third down, that you could replace him with high-end talent. That was the rotation that we saw with Georgia. It was what we saw with Nick Saban for years with his defense, that they were going to continuously be able to rotate these guys, and you would always have fresh legs to attack the quarterback. Well, Texas A&M, up to this point, had not had that. It felt like there was either run fits that weren't developed. It felt like they were not disciplined. It felt like they weren't consistently getting to the quarterback unless it was just off of pure athleticism. And as we could see from this year, and especially with what the numbers have stated up till this point, and the reason why I'm giving it a little bit more credibility compared to other statistical numbers, say like Ohio State, is Texas A&M hasn't played like all these high-level offenses, but I think Missouri was a great litmus test, and LSU in a couple of weeks is going to be an even greater test for the secondary to be truly tested. I think of Nussmeier and Kyron Lacey and Mason Taylor. Those are the guys against a really good offensive line that are really going to push the limits of what Texas A&M can do defensively. But I'm still seeing the signs and the making of a great Texas A&M defense. And so when I say wrecking crew, you see it in the thumbnail, you see it in the title. I'm not calling this a wrecking crew defense. I see the makings of a wrecking crew defense. I see Will Lee as a lockdown corner. I see Nick Scorton as a top 10 NFL draft pick. There's been so much hype between all my draft buddies who have talked about Nick Scorton since he was at Purdue. If you do not know his name yet and you don't follow A&M football, we are looking at someone that I've compared to a lot of first-round pick Jared Verse, a super powerful edge rusher who I think Nick Scorton's better than Jared Verse, to be honest, because the problem I had with Verse coming out of college and at the next level was he was all power, no finesse. We're talking about Nick Scorton, someone who has an incredible bull rush, but also someone that has a spin move, a little bit more finesse. He loves being in a wide 9 set. And what a wide 9 set is in the most simple way possible, I just want to represent this for anyone that isn't really following football in the most easy way possible. I could just show it real quick for you. There we go. We're gonna grab quarterback, running back, and tight end. So usually we're gonna grab 3 down linemen. They're gonna just come here. And the biggest thing is these are usually your edge players who are just going to go around the edge. And a lot of times this is going to be Nick Scorton because he's going to have a tight end, which I think we should just put as a circle. I promise you, I could do this so much better. I'm just doing this on the fly. This is not in the script, but I didn't want to just say wide 9 out of my tail. So I'm going to erase it here because primarily you could send Nick Scorton right on the outside of the tight end and get him as wide as possible because he could play standing up. He could play with his hand in the dirt. And when you have that variation of him being able to play in this position or out here, it causes a defense having to shift to a player who I think one thing that YouTuber Drew, Texas A&M, he does fantastic work with Texas A&M. One of the biggest things that he has been harping on when it comes to read keys is especially when you have the quarterback, it's just basically a read option. Most simple terms, you've seen it in Madden, you've seen it everywhere. A read option. Let me see this light, if I could shift it so it's easier for you to see. But we're just going to turn it all the way. There we go. Apologies. So he's going to talk about the read key, which I think I could do this in a much better way. We're doing, it all stays in the show, everyone. Read key, and then we're going to have H. It's technically an I, but right here, he's going to crash down, and he has to decide, is he going to hand the ball because Scorton's going to go for the quarterback, or is he going to go for the running back? The problem with Nick Scorton, though, that he has for offenses is he doesn't really ever have to choose. He chooses by taking out all of them. There is play and play and play about Nick Scorton as the read key defender because he's usually the one that's farthest out wide, that he is the read guy that if they are trying any form of option with a mobile quarterback, that he is just going to ruin it. And there is just no chance of this having any opportunity to be done correctly. And the same can be said for Shamar Stewart, who is also a super athletic edge defender, a former 5-star from the state of Florida. And he causes issue after issue after issue. Those are just the edge defenders. I think one of the weak points that we thought we would get with Texas A&M was the interior, but you have Shamar Turner, Albert Regis, Cassius Howell. The biggest point with Mike Elko that he shifted was continuously rotating multiple defensive linemen, and they all have very different skill sets and being able to leverage them on third down. They're 19th in third down conversion rate. Offenses only have a 30% chance as of now on third down to convert it against the Texas A&M defense. Texas A&M is also 20th in points. They're 17th in rush yards. They only allow about 101. And this was internally with a lot of Texas A&M fans a huge concern because they continuously kept giving up big plays in the rushing attack. I think of Notre Dame. I think of, I believe, a play against Bowling Green. And even McNeese State had a couple of runs. And even with that being understood, they played against one of the best rushing attacks in Arkansas, shut it down. The basis of Missouri's rushing attack is the basis of their offense. I think of Cody Schrader in this team. Like, that is the basis of their offense, is if they're not able to run the ball, they're not going to be able to push the ball downfield with Luther Burden. That doesn't even get to the next level of guys that I think could improve. Torian York, Samford, the linebackers. That's an area of improvement. This is a defense that can still grow. I don't even think they're anything close to a finished product. And that's why I see the makings of a wrecking crew. The secondary, Will Lee, Ratcliffe, Bryce Anderson, Des Ricks, all fantastic guys that are all developing and growing. I think the slot corner position needs development right there with the linebackers, but I see that area growing. And so when I go back to 2020 and to finish my point, because I just see all these different areas, and that's why Texas A&M's having all this momentum. Also, being the number one rushing team in the SEC helps a lot, and having a point guard like Connor Wigman, kind of like Kellen Mond, kind of like what they had with Isaiah Spiller, Devon A-Chain. You have this rushing attack. You see the makings of this 2020 team. That's why I feel that they're going to be able to grow and develop and get better and better. In 2020, they were 28th in points with 21.6 points per game being allowed, and they were second in the nation in rush yards at 92 rush yards per game. Mind you, Georgia was at like 70, so A&M really had no chance at the number one spot. It's just crazy that Georgia was able to do that in 2020. But Texas A&M, the makings and the strengths of the defenses that we've seen as some of the best defenses in quite some time with Texas A&M, you're seeing the same trends across the board. Now, can they continue it? They're going to play a really good offense in Texas to finish the year. They're going to play a really good offense with LSU at home. I would even throw in South Carolina as not a team with Lenore Sellers most likely getting more and more healthy as they approach that game. It's in South Carolina, a place that Texas A&M has lost, I believe, the last time they played there. They're going to have a great rushing attack. They're going to be able to have some athletes that can push the ball downfield. So these are all the makings and the building blocks of a great wrecking crew. I just want to get ahead of it and think we could be in a potential area that Texas A&M might be on the cusp of having like a top 5 defense in the country, and that could lead them to a college football playoff spot. But they got to be consistent. Don't drink the rat poison. With that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video. I know it was kind of all over the place, but when I got all these notes built up, it's kind of tough for me to stay on one direction. So thank you so much for watching. And if it is your first time here, all I'll ever ask of you is to talk some football with me, even if it's as chaotic as this video was. And thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk football with you.